Okay, folks, this is my little short presentation on the assignment to the policy primer and commentary. I am aiming for brevity. So if there's stuff that I've skimmed over too quickly, do ask in the discussion board and or the Facebook website. Okay, so now with this assignment, you're meant to be creating a presentation for an everyday user. It doesn't mean a stupid user, but just someone that's fairly, average level of skills and knowledge of the internet, on a platform of your choice, but not the platform itself, but the terms and conditions of that platform, the terms and conditions of use of that platform. And if you want more clarity on what that is, you may ask in the discussion board. And I strongly suggest that if you're in doubt as to whether you are looking at the right thing, please do check beforehand. Even some other student giving you an idea of whether you've done the right thing is much better, I think, in the long run. Okay, so this assignment is worth 30% and 10%. There might be confusion because like
You've got mail.
the university may have the old marks, which was only 30%, but we felt that you deserve the 10% of the mark for this for the commentary part of this assignment. So, and it's a nice bit of incentive to do that commentary. So it includes that presentation that I spoke of, an exegesis. Now that's basically an explanation of the decisions that went into the presentation. And then a commentary on the other students' primers after they've been submitted. Please check the due dates. They're at the end of your unit outline. This unit outline that I'm showing you is the semester 2 version of Net303. So it would be different if you are not doing semester 2. You're perhaps an open university student. You may not be. It may not be the same exact dates over here. Now, I'm not going to read through every single thing of the instructions. I think it's very important that you do so. So some of the things to be mindful of, this is my focus. I will just pick out a few things that I think I might that bear repeating. Here we have like some of the kind of issues that you need to think about. For instance, privacy, surveillance, freedom of expression, censorship, copyright, and ownership. It doesn't have to be these exact same topics, but certainly draw from the first part of the unit, up to this week. And well, up to the week that this is during, and consider the major issues that have been debated or have been a feature of the readings that you've been engaging with. And make sure perhaps that you have a short list of things to watch out for before you dive into those terms of use, because those you can get pretty lost in all that hefty text. Okay, and it gives you a nice handy list of things, of questions. Now, I think it's very worth organizing these points into sections, right? So that they will have some sort of structure for the user. When you come to doing your presentation, make sure that there's some sort of overarching structure to your presentation. I am going to be showing you an example, and you can see how that person has organized their their presentation. You can use any presentation tool format, and here's some examples: slide tools, slide sharing, etc. Makes a good point here, which is there is no benefit in spending days creating an amazing flash animation when a crisp, clear, straightforward slide presentation would do the job just as well. Might not be a slide presentation, might be a video, might be something else. So it's up to you how what sort of tool you use for your presentation. I've known people to do it in comic form, right? So they create a comic, and so there are different ways in which you can approach this. It's aimed at a generalist reader or viewer, should be accessible again. Um, Now, no specific word count. So I know someone's going to ask that, but no, there isn't a specific word count. And this is why. Because it's more important to know that it needs to be something that can be read or viewed in 5 minutes by an informed but not necessarily academic audience. All right, so it might be an informed audience, a knowledgeable audience, but doesn't have to be a scholarly audience. Okay, so too often people seem to think that journalists or everyday means stupid, and I'm sorry, but that's not how we are to approach our average listener, okay, and viewer. Okay, as a guideline, if you chose PowerPoint slides, then you will aim to have no more than 12 slides with no more than 5 lines of text on each slide. Now, I tend to make one-line slides, so I'll probably have much more than 12 slides. This is why sometimes these numbers don't mean a thing. This isn't an essay, so please don't cut and paste sections from an essay and paste it into paragraphs into slides. That isn't going to work. I'm sure that some of you have actually watched presentations with chunks and chunks of text on the slides, some of which aren't even readable, but certainly doesn't work in a visual way. So, and also, people, I'll just show you in a moment from the example the kinds of things that work better. Okay. Your exegesis, this is, okay, after you've done your presentation, right? Your exegesis is an explanation of the choices made in your work. Why did you choose why did you choose SlideShare over this? Why did you choose this? And not just perhaps what that platform offers, the kinds of level of skills that it's addressing, the kinds of audience that you're addressing, and why the choice of platform and the choices that went into the design of your presentation addresses that audience very well, that kind of thing, so discuss the reasoning behind the choices in your presentation. You must include references in both the exegesis and the online policy primer. Again, it's not an essay, so you don't need a separate introduction or conclusion, but it has to be logical. It has to make sense logically and have a flow. It should flow smoothly. It shouldn't be jumpy and all over the place in that way. Now, these are the criteria of assessment. Again, clear and accessible overview of the conditions of use. Core implications. No, so you're not to go present a whole heap of unorganized points to the viewer, but try and, out of all the analysis and work that you do, try and boil it down to a few key sections, issues, and that are very important for that platform and for the sorts of people that will be using that platform. Link specific policy points to broad social political implications, and we've been doing it as well. We've been in the readings and in the discussions, these are the broader aspects that we've been worrying about. What are the broader implications of Australia's most recent policy on the collection of data. For instance, we've been discussing, how the broader implications. Those are the kinds of things that I want you to be mindful of when you look at the terms and conditions. Engages critically and meaningfully with relevant readings. And again, this can be done in a way that is useful for your everyday user. They may not want to wade through tomes and tomes of academic text, but there are some key aspects arising from these texts that will be useful for them when they are trying to, inform themselves. Uses an appropriate online presentation delivery format, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, just to remind Net303, the people who are taking this as a postgraduate unit, that the terms and conditions are a bit different. This is the terms and conditions you have, and it says demonstrate advanced understanding of the internet politics and power. So to go more in depth, there, so you probably will have to draw and integrate the materials even more. But most of it is the same. You just need to, I think, work harder at trying to like integrate the materials. Not to say that Net303 people don't have to do that either. Okay, and I think over here it is an additional criteria here, because you notice Net303 doesn't have that single line about internet politics and power, right? So it's an additional dimension that you're looking at. You need to consider issues to do with politics and power and the internet in a way that the Net303s don't do. And I think it's very important to interact with each other and with myself if you're in doubt as to what that means. Okay. In a moment, I will talk about the commentary and after I go into the example. So going into the example that we have, this student Kobe Songmani, who is a Net 503 student, but I think, so if you're taking a unit at undergraduate level and feeling a bit intimidated in the course of the snippet of this person's work, do remember it's at postgraduate level. Still, that's not saying that I haven't seen Net303s produce something like this. They have done work like this, so it's good to aim a bit high. Okay, let's go. So they are working on DeviantArt, which is an online art and social networking community. Now, what are the kinds of people that will be using an art and social networking community, right? So start thinking about that. Who would be the likely audience and what would they care about? This gives an overview of the kinds of things that you can do on that site, and it's quite thorough in covering the sort of services that the site provides, a retail platform as well as a place to share the artwork, to follow other artists as well, right? So this is pretty good because it gives the viewer and spells out to the presenter why, the rationale behind this presentation. Long, boring, full of legal jargon. So what is this presentation trying to do? It's trying to convey the essential bits of the terms and conditions without being long, boring, and full of jargon. But using services without knowing the TOS can raise a number of issues to do with, and this is where that organizational work that you did as you embark on this is important. Identify the key things that you want to be focusing upon, and your list might be very different from this list. You might have privacy and free expression and something else. Moral and political censorship. What if it's a platform that's often used for political discussions and for, say, activism and knowledge raising? Then you would be worried about like political censorship and moral censorship even. Okay, so this is a very important work for you to do as you're doing your that organizational work and that kind of like pruning off work, so that you can boil it down to 3 catchy sort of keywords for the viewer to focus upon. It tells you where you can find the terms and conditions. So now that see the flow here? Very nice smooth flow from there to privacy. And then here's an example of how you can integrate quotes in a sort of unobtrusive but useful way. Here, this quote, for instance, tells the viewer, now the reason why I'm doing this is because a lot of people aren't aware or concerned. They don't understand perhaps the implications of privacy on social networking site, and I'm here to tell you about that. So again, it's setting out your agenda, setting out the reason for your presentation, drawing on the scholarly readings to do that. Okay, when you use the site, the DeviantArt site collects 2 kinds of data. So far, so good. Personal, we know that. We know that all these social networking sites collect information like that, and anonymous information. So nothing groundbreaking or scary. Personally identifiable information like date of birth, credit card information, phone number, address, that sort of stuff we know. And this part too, like some of us may know that even before we coming into uni, but there are people who wouldn't, collect IP address, web browser, all that. Okay, all right, so it's anonymous, isn't it? All right, but then it says the reasons why DeviantArt uses this, and also says this anonymous data is linked to your personal identifiable information. Right, so already, there's a bit of a concern that how is this information going to be used? Well, it's going to be used for communicating and customizing user experience and all that. Also to see and analyze usage trends. Won't be given away except when required to by law. Now, I'm curious about that, but I don't think this presentation spells that out, and I think that that's quite important. When is it required to by law, and how much would DeviantArt protect its users when the law comes knocking? And I think there's some websites that are more adamant than others in protecting their users, and some websites that will go okay and give up that information. So that is useful to know, but this particular person hasn't, for reasons of theirs, perhaps to do with like the kind of audience they have in mind, has not done. Okay, so spells out the implications. I'm not going to go through. If you want to look at it in detail, you can always go to the actual site of this presentation and click through it. And that's the site here, right? Can you see that? You can note that down, pause and note that down. Okay, bigger picture. See, again, the full implications, addressing that awareness issue. I think that's why this presentation works, because it's already clarified this is why I'm doing it, and this is the information that you do need to know. And drawing in again from this person's research. And then gives options. Okay, let's not be scary. Let's try and tell the reader, you have options and the site allows you option. You're not scaremongering here. You're giving them a nice balanced analysis where they are informed and they can make their decision on how and whether to use this site. Again, pulling in from readings. Again, not in an accessible way, not in a sort of way that kind of is off-putting. Monitoring is norm. Next, we look at copyright ownership, the second dimension they were looking at. Now, nice. Okay, I'm an artist. I retain full rights. That's cool. Can reserve all rights. Cool. Oh, all right. It grants itself a worldwide royalty-free, so they don't have to pay you royalty if they use this content. Non-exclusive license. And note that they do give this person gives like the place to find this aspect of the policy. So you do give your viewer a breadcrumb trail, but the way he's done it in smaller font, a little bit fainter. It's there if you want to see the information, but it doesn't clutter up the screen. To use the work on the site for just about any purpose other than a commercial manner not associated with DeviantArt. Wonder what does that mean? Explanation? In other words, DeviantArt can use your artwork to promote itself, or your name or likeness if you provide it, or the name and likenesses of people you include in your artwork. Alright, so again, addressing that issue of like people may actually be concerned about these things, but may not bother reading the terms of conditions, terms of service, and trying to decipher through all that language what it actually means. So that's your job. If this is a problem for you, so gives options again, and then goes into like some of the problems with some of these options. Okay, now I'm going to scroll through quickly. I think this is good enough to give you an idea of the kinds of things you can be looking at, and the kinds of ways in which you can address the criteria but yet keep it accessible and informative, you know, for a general audience. Okay. So, you know, it's worth thinking, having a few key types of audiences in mind is good. You know, have in your head as you're reading. So I think that would be a good idea to do. Fan art is particularly an issue on DeviantArt because there's a lot of fan art there, and fan art tends to breach copyright conditions. And this is drawing from broader reading again. I don't think DeviantArt itself talks about fair use, but this person has brought in that to sort of like enlighten the user as to where they stand if they kind of like are in that gray area of the terms and conditions. Okay, talks about remixing culture, which is actually very relevant for DeviantArt. DeviantArt features a lot of remediation and remixing of previously created content. So kind of like that's useful because it sort of like takes that whole area of copyright away from you've broken the law into a sort of more interesting area that artists themselves engage with, they would be aware of. And this is something you can do, like you can also like provide video links for content that isn't part of presentation but people who are interested in exploring further can go into. Okay, so I'm gonna scroll through quickly. Again, you can always pause or view the original, but oh, here's a nice example of the kind of structure you can do to, you know, this is a nice visual display of the structure of the presentation into the subsections. This might be important for you to look into. How does the site handle minors, people who are using the site who are younger? Right, so it is interesting because DeviantArt does contain mature content. So how is it handling it? And you think of it from the perspective of a parent, of a school, and of the underage person themselves who maybe want to use a site like that. All right. And those are the types of content that's prohibited. So, you know, in terms of moral censorship, that might be useful to know. So, you know, if you think about those artists that really go into the margins and feature like sex acts or whatever, that would be that those conditions would be a problem for them, and it's worth discussing that. And here. Now, if you remember in an exhibition in England, I believe, I can't remember now, but featuring reenactments of black people, black actors dressed up as slaves and things like that, in a art exhibition, I believe, or museum exhibition, and how that prompted a lot of like debate and concern, because in depicting this racism in a critical way, the concern was that it was actually replicating those representations, even with the right intention. So if you're involved in that kind of artwork, this might be problematic because the site actually doesn't like anything that looks like racism, sexism, and all that. So you have to think about that if you're going to be an artist that works on the edge of this sort of thing, you might have to think carefully about that. And here we are. How interactions are dealt with. Okay, so I'm going to spin through this quickly and move on. Okay, hopefully closes off. Brings it into the wider dimension of freedom of expression. Now you may want to be thinking about something else besides freedom of expression, a bigger, broader issue. So think about that. Thanks for watching, and the references at the end. Kind of like a roll of credits, isn't it? I hope this has been useful for you. I'll now go and give you a quick spin through the exegesis. Okay, now what you submit is obviously not the original policy primer that will exist online, and I or your marker will be viewing it. And the way you tell me that it's there is you include the link on what you do upload to Blackboard. So what you do upload to Blackboard is the cover page, the assignment cover page, and the exegesis. See that? And that's also got, right? So on the cover page, put the URL to your primer. So you will have to upload your presentation to the web and provide the link there on the cover page, and that will be assessed that way. Here is the exegesis. Again, explain some of the rationale behind it. Issues in the readings that came up. So this person has basically said, look, these are the issues that I felt were important for this remix culture, etc., undermining of traditional blah blah. Here's a nice sort of like the way this person is bringing in the issues raised in the material in this unit, and the kind of material on the website, and the terms of conditions, pulling all that together to sort of like make a statement about like why we chose to why this primer matters, because of all this. It's very important, right? FAQ, again, you can view this on your own, but not all the sites will give, for instance, who read what on the site. When a site does do that, then you can say, whoa, out of like the 28 million registered users only, it's only 470 weekly views. Should be more than that, shouldn't it? You know, so that reinforces the previous point that a lot of people don't read it. So they really need to look at the primer and the kinds of issues that are raised in the primer. Privacy, so very interesting. Why did you choose to focus on privacy in relation to this site and the policy of this site? And then choice of presentation format and platform, reasoning behind that. Not just that it's pretty or anything like that, but using spatial memory will make the information more memorable. And it's true, this that presentation really did do that. It used space to try and make some of that information more memorable. I think the presentation is back to okay, so nice justification here. It sums up quite a long TOS document, blah blah blah. The reasoning, the ability to zoom in and out over a large section, and then drilling down into subsections, the kind of aesthetics and the kind of ways in which that helps with engagement. All right. Okay. So these are examples of the material. I think like I will clear up the commentary as we go along in the discussion board. I don't think that requires a video presentation, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your policy primers. Like I said, this is only one example of the things you can do. Please don't feel that you have to do it this way. It's just an example of the potential that this assignment can offer, and I welcome and anticipate some really interesting primers coming from you. Thank you very much.